All right, greetings, brethren. This is a little demonstration how you can produce the rod tract literature with these simple tools. All I have is a table. I have the printed literature I've already done. Now I'll show you another clip or how to get this off the computer, but these are the print files ready to go. We've got a stapler, our straight edge, and a razor knife. Literally, that's it. So I will demonstrate how to take a set of tracts. Now this is tract number 1. I printed 10 copies. So I've laid it in front of me. So I've taken it out of the printer and I've laid it down in front of me. And the orientation is important here. You see the obvious graphic, the cover, and that always orients in the, would be the upper right hand quadrant as it's facing you. And this will determine our sequence of folding. So the first step is to fold this and put it together, collate it, and then I'm going to put copies here. The next step will be to staple, and then the last step will be to cut it into the tract. So I'll demonstrate the first part here. So you pick up the first tract. Now, if you're left-handed, it would be a mirror image. Everything would be the opposite, but I'm right-handed. So I'll pick up this, and you fold it in half. We're going to fold this thing 2 times. So the first line is to fold this thing in half. So you have to line up. So you line up the top corner and then the bottom. And when you get those 2 lined up, you kind of pin it down and then crease across the top of your finger. So that's the first fold. You pick it up with your hand, the finger here, and then you are going to fold it the second time the opposite way. And once again, you have to do the alignment. You have to take the top edge and match those 2 corners with the bottom. Now the bottom sometimes lines up slightly not perfect, but you get it here, and once again you fill the crease. So now you've done 1 fold for that piece. You set it to the side, and you do the next one exactly the same way. You pick it up, pull the top over the top, line up the 2 points, the 2 corners, pin them down, take your finger, do this crease. And you pick it up here, fold it and rotate, line up the top corner, crease. Now, this has to go inside of that one. It's a collation. So you open it up, slip it in. So you're going to do that for every page until we finish the tract. So I'll go ahead and complete that. Now I've done this thousands of times, so I can do it almost blinded. So at first you're going to stumble around. Now maybe as you're doing that second fold, the paper doesn't fold smoothly. It kind of kinks up. That's okay. Just adjust it a little bit, but the key is to pin that top 2 and the bottom 2, and then you can bring it into the fold. And then this goes inside of the next one. So open it up, insert it. So I'll go ahead and do that for this tract. Now every tract's got a different number. This one's probably got about, I think, 10 pages to fold total. So we'll see. Now, making sure when I collate, I open it up and set it in the center. I don't want to get it in between these either of these others, or create a mess. It throw things off. So you put it in the right spot. Continue on. Do the lineup. And at first, you're going to stumble around with this, but practice makes perfect. Sometimes the paper, when it folds, it will not want to cooperate. You have to sometimes coarse it a little bit. Also, too, make sure you want to grab 1 piece of paper at a time. And how do you know you're done? If we finish this one here, insert into the center. How do we know we're done? Well, there's the cover of the next one. So this one's completed. Tap it, grab the top, just kind of to finish that crease, that folding. Now you have a folded tract. Put it in the basket and it will prepare it for stapling. So you go through a stack and you might fill that whole tray. How long do you want to sit here and fold? Well, that depends on your endurance, but you repeat this process until you have maybe you need 10 copies of this particular tract. So we'll do this until we do the whole thing. I'm going to demonstrate now the folding. This tract here, and most of the tracts have an even number of pages, so there might be 8 pages total to fold. But what happens if you get to a tract that has an odd number of pages? And there are a few of them. Here's an example, General Conference Special. Okay. When you go to print it, it will have an odd number of print pages, like say 11. So if, in order to print it, you will print the first 10 pages, which is 5 pages double-sided. Okay. You'll print that first. 10 copies. What do you do about that last page, the 11th page? Well, it's laid out that you print that separately. And so it's an insert. And so you'll end up with that 11th page printed back to back on itself. And you will take it out and cut it in half and have an insert. So this is the insert. This is for an odd number of print pages. So the insert you'll set aside. You'll fold the even pages just as a typical tract. So I'll do that for this one. This is General Conference Special. So it's just a repetitious process. The movement is always the same. That's how you avoid folding it the wrong way or flipping it upside down. Pick it up, flip over, line it. And sometimes it wants to go crooked, like this. You see how it's not lined up. You don't want to fold it that way because you'll get everything out of line. So you want to, if you're having trouble, pin the top and then float it to get to the bottom to line up. And then once you get it, then you can crease it. Pick it up, rotate, turn it the top towards you. So this one here, we have folded, okay, the even number of pages, that's the next tract. So we folded, what, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 sheets. But don't forget the insert. This is the last one. You pick it up, and as if you're just folding it once over on top of itself. And this goes the last one in the middle. Now, how do you double check to make sure you got the right sequence of pages? If you've done it in the right order, everything should be lined up. But you can quickly go through and check your page numbers, okay? So it starts, that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, that's right. Now, you don't have to go through every page. You can just flip it over. If you take 5 and add 4 to that, it should be 9. So you flip over to the next one, it's 9. Okay, so you take 9 and 4, that's 13. So we're just making sure that we didn't get things out of order. 13 plus 4, 17. Okay, 17 plus 4, 21. And that's the insert. And make sure that that's in the order. You flip that over, 21. 22, 23, 24, 25. So I just did a quick visual inspection to make sure I folded it right. What happens if you picked up one of those sheets and flipped it around or folded it the wrong way? Your numbers would go from 5 to 84 to 16. It would just be scrambled. And obviously somebody trying to read that would say, these people are out of their minds. So double check every once in a while, quality control, to make sure you get your sequencing right. Okay. And certainly after you get done some tracks, randomly check a few or have somebody else check it, especially before you fold it or staple it. At this point, if you discover a mistake, it can be corrected if you go back and think about it. And believe me, you will make mistakes. You'll fold it the wrong way. But the key is, before this goes out and gets distributed, you want to quality control and make sure you've got everything in the right order. So that all comes from this mechanic of picking it up, folding it in the right sequence, and putting it together in the right way. This is all manual operation. So with practice, you'll be able to do this in your sleep. Now I'm going to do one more here of this particular track. Okay, the next step, we folded the tracks. Now, it could be whatever you need on demand. So in this case, let's say we only have 4 tracks that we have ready to staple now. So you've got your area clear, you take your tracks that you want to staple out one at a time. Okay, they're still loose. So we want to staple these. So we get our staple, the long reach stapler. Now this depth adjustment I have already preset, because you take your track out and you're going to want to put a staple here and a staple here. Now, equidistant, you can do this by eyeball. But the question is how far in does this thing go before you staple it? You can guess, but this little metal guide here is a depth guide. So with some experimentation, now you can do this on a blank piece of paper to practice. But you want to get it centered right over that fold. So this one's already preset. You line it up, you leave a little gap there, you set on top the staple, and then you adjust it here. Now it's important because we're going to be trimming off that top. You see the little tick mark there? That's the cut line. So you want to leave a little space in stapling, probably about a ½ an inch or a couple centimeters. Line up here, place the stapler down. Now it's stapled. And I recommend having a second tray where you could then put your staple tracks over there ready for cutting. Now, I'll do the next one. Another comment. What happens if we got this brand new. We didn't have the depth guide adjusted, okay? Now, I can tell by this one, I can see the dust, but how do you set this thing the first time? All right. Well, you can take a track, tap, line it up on the bottom, lay it in, and now you're going to lay the print head down about where you think it should be. At that point, you bring the guide, thank you.
The stop.
So this is going to be, there we go, about where it should be. And then release. Now, is this going to be the right place? Look at it, right on the spine. What happens if you're off? Well, you might have to make an adjustment. That's why I recommended, say, practicing on a blank piece of paper. Once you get this adjusted here, you can maybe make a mark in case it gets moved again in the future. So play around with your guide a little bit until you get it right on the spine. 1, 2 staples. Now, on a track that's not a lot of pages, that's fairly straightforward. You get a nice, clean fold over in the middle, and so forth. Now, this track 1, is a little thicker, but not a whole lot. Same thing, you grab it with your hand, just tap it to make sure it's all flush here, because we're going to cut the top and the side off, as you'll see. So those will, but you want that bottom to be lined up, so you slide it in. When you I look at the guide, just some visual reference point, but I leave a little bit hanging off the edge, and I try to keep it the same on one side and the other. Your eyes are a pretty good estimate of distance. So I estimate there, okay, lay it on. Now here's another thing. When you get bigger tracks that are a lot thicker, you're going to take a lot of finesse to get that staple all the way through all those sheets. So the key to that is just not to slam it, but to lay the head down onto the paper firmly, get your hand over and give it a quick punch. If you don't, sometimes the staple will not go through, it'll crumple, and it won't fasten properly. And you're going to have to take it out, so if you mess up the stapling, now see, there's a cut mark line here. I'm just eyeballing, so I'm creating some space here. I know that's going to be the top. So roughly eye it up, get over, pressure, an explosive down push. Now this went through no problem, but what happens if it doesn't go through or the staple crinkles up? You're going to have to take something and remove the staple remover. Pull it out and do it again. And on the big tracks like track number 3, which is 128 individual pages, so that's like, what, 32 sheets of paper you got to punch through. And so you will fumble around with that one a little bit, but practice makes perfect. It's the whole technique of getting an explosive down pressure when you staple. And I'll do the last one here. Track 1, like I say, track number 3 and track number 5 in particular are the most challenging. But with practice, you'll get it down. The other thing, the key, is the proper staple. I recommend buying factory brand staples. Here in the US, swing line, don't buy cheap Chinese staples. They're the worst. They will fold and crinkle. So buy, if you're in Africa, if it's from Japan or Germany, buy the best quality staples. Don't cut corners, because the cheap staples will bend or fold prematurely. They won't go through the paper. Okay, so let's get this one lined up. And if the staple messes up, no problem, you can remove it and redo it. Okay, so now we have stapling done for these tracks. It's time to do the last step, which is to cut them. Now, in most tracks, they have a certain dimension. And I've put cut lines here in the print file. So if you look closely, you'll see a little X here, and it says trim marks. And then you'll see a little tick over here, and then one down at the bottom. This helps you give the proper alignment for the cutting. You don't have to measure it. So in this case, you simply take your steel straight edge and line it up on the cut marks. Now, if you have the advantage of a guillotine cutter, you can line it in there and chop it. But this is like if you start basic with nothing but a ruler and a straight edge, this is how you can do it. So you line up the ruler on those 2 tick marks. Pin it down with your hand. Razor knife. Now, one thing, make sure that blade is sharp. Dull tools slip and can injure yourself. Now this is a dangerous step, but what I'm going to do is pull the knife along the ruler edge. Do I have to go all the way through? No, you can just pass the tick mark, but you just keep going. And the key is don't get too carried away with cutting pressure, okay? Just do it lightly, because if you put too much pressure and it jumps track and slips, guess what? You can go into your flesh and it won't feel good. So just lightly pull with a sharp edge. You'll feel it. You'll just feel it slicing through the paper. And I'm cutting on a special pad here, this green pad. Once you get through the paper, you'll feel it hit the pad below. It'll just get smoother, okay? And then you can even pull it up and see, okay, am I getting all the way through? Okay. Yep, I'm all the way through. So I've cut that one side. I simply rotate to cut off the top part. And once again, I line up the tick mark on this side and that side. Press down. And just light, gentle, but firm strokes. I don't want to be stressing here. Now the hardest part on this one is that fold in the back will cause a little resistance. But once you're through, you'll feel it. It's just like, oh, I feel like I'm free here. Now, sometimes at the very tip, it will hang on. Okay, there's some little teeny piece there. You just go in and snip it. And there you go. Pocket-sized tract, precision cut. And now, your final inspection, especially when you first get started, is go through and say, does this thing sequence properly? Cover page, page 3, 4, 5. And you make sure everything sequences 6, 7, 8, 9. You can flip to the back or anywhere randomly in between just to make sure everything 34, 35, 36, 37. We're good. Ready to go. In your pocket and off to the market or out to the marketplace where you're looking for soft soles. You can hand them a tract, keep it in your pocketbook, carry it with you if you have a moment. And that's the purpose of the design, is to, if you have a few spare moments, to pull it out and read a thought or two rather than scroll on your cell phone screen. So, now, scrap. Have a waste receptacle. All the scrap, when you get done with it, you're going to want to put it in something. I recommend burning it. I'll just set this over here. I'm going to do another one just for demo. Now, the question is, do you have to cut it this way first or that way? That's up to you. There's some flexibility here. I always prefer to cut the long way first. Can you cut it all the way through? Yeah, if you feel that way, I'll just demonstrate that. You could start here and cut all the way through from top to bottom to avoid that one piece of paper. So notice as I'm cutting here, these pieces come off nice and smooth. So you see what I did there? I cut it like the guillotine would. Cut the whole long edge off, turn it on the side, line up the tick marks. So if you prefer to do that way, that's fine. There is some flexibility there. That might be a little easier. Okay? So there's your completed tract. Well, the first one's in my pocket. And then you can have another basket and line up your completed tracts. So that basically is the process. So appreciate your time. God bless. Bye. Okay, so we're going to look at the details of the folding here. So we pick up our top sheet, flip it over the top, our cover image on the top. So here the key is the alignment. When you fold this over, now this is going to be looped over. Don't crease it. You want to get that top point lined up and then the bottom point lined up. This is the key alignment. Once you get it, you can pin this finger and pin this and then come back, pull back, and then do your crease. That's the key step. And the next one, you pick it up, fold it around your index finger here, and as you roll it over, now you're going to do the same thing here. Line up these two edges, okay? So that point here and down on the bottom, that point, pin it with your finger and your thumb, and then come back here and get your fold. Now the top might kink up a little bit. That's okay, you can just push through that. So that gives your first insert. Now when we do the next one, now some sheets of paper are going to line up quicker than others. But once again, you work on that alignment process, getting the top two edges, points lined up, the bottom two, hold it down, start your crease, and then just work your way back. Pick it up, fold it around your index finger, come around, and get that top corner lined up, and then the bottom. Now you might notice on the bottom sometimes, if you get out of alignment, it might not line up perfectly. Do your best to kind of eyeball it. But once you get it, pin it down, start to crease, and then push to the edges. That edge, pull down to this edge, and insert. Okay? So once again, you flip over, align the two corners. Align the corners on the top, on the bottom. Once you get it, make sure you don't overshoot. Okay? Make sure that you float it around a little bit. Make sure that you can get things perfectly lined up. Hold it down, crease, push to the out, pull down, pick it up around your index finger, line up the corners, and like I say, with your patience, you'll get this, it'll line up perfect. Now, you're going to have some that will give you a hard time, but you'll learn from dealing with those. Okay, so we get a perfect line around, flip it over. Now sometimes this will kink up here in the paper, and you might have a hard time. If you really do, you can literally pick it up and line it up with your fingers here, pinch it, and bring it back down to the mat to help you kind of line things up. If you have that sheet of paper gives you a hard time, that's a little trick. I prefer to keep everything on the table as much as possible. I've known some people that want to do all the folding in the air. I'll show you what I'm talking about. They will want to pick it up and line up everything up here. Okay, you could do that. I just think it takes more time. It's better to line it up on the mat, on the table, hold it down, and then you're creasing at the same time, so it's less motion. Hold it around your finger, pull it around, line the top corners, bottom corners, start to crease, push to the top, pull it to the bottom, you're in. And then you've got one more here. The key is working on the alignment. With practice, you'll be able to use this hand to kind of subtly adjust to get those corners lined up perfectly. Once they do, you pin it down, do the crease in the back, push up, pull it down, flip it around your index, line up the second set of corners, top, bottom. Once you get them all lined up, you pinch here, get that fold tight. Now you have your track ready to staple. So I'll go through the stapling once again. Here, line up the bottom. The cutting lines are going to be on the top and the side. So if you lay it, push this into the stapler, okay. Now I have the guide here already preset. If you get out of alignment, you basically line it up where if you put the staple head down, not the front edge, but just back a little bit, that's where the staple comes out, that will line up right over that crease, right over the fold. So we leave a little space outside the guide here, come down. Really, we're talking about how far from the bottom here. About an inch, just kind of eyeball it. Staple, okay. And then here, that tick mark, that's where the top of the track is going to be. So you kind of eyeball, okay, that's about that distance, about the same distance here to the first part of the staple. Line it up. And you got your staple track. I'll do one more. Tap, line up. Now one more point about the stapling is on the thicker tracks, okay, lots of sheets. You are going to want to lay the print head or the staple head all the way down to the paper, get it firm, ready to go, and then even get your arm up, your elbow, and then explosive push to get that staple to go all the way through all those pieces of paper. If you don't, sometimes the staple will crinkle up, and you'll have to get a staple puller or a knife blade and pull that staple out. Okay, so that is some more details on the stapling. Last, a couple details on the cutting. Now, I showed in the big video how to cut it in one piece. That's something I worked on, but probably the best way to get this to work first time is to line up on the long edge between the two print marks, line it up, and just cut all the way through this thing with your sharp razor knife. Just pull through gently, and as you start going through, you'll feel it going through the paper. You'll see these pieces of paper, they'll start coming off. Just keep going all the way. And once you get the mat, you'll feel it. You'll feel that it's a different feel. So it's done, look, completely clean. You can push those out of the way. And then you can rotate the track and then print it or cut off the top portion. So you can see a little cut mark there, the other one here. So you line up, press down. And once again, when you're pulling, don't press down hard. Sharp blade, just pull gently. Light pressure downward. Now this is going to sometimes get in the way. You just have to move out, keep pulling, pulling. And once you hit the green mat, you'll feel, or whatever surface below, you'll feel a change in the texture. And then the last part is, okay, there's a little piece here that didn't let loose. You just kind of clip it out of the way. And there you go. Nice clean cut. That's probably the safest way. Is those guys say cut the one edge first, then the other, then you have your completed track. All right, I hope you had found that helpful. God bless. That's it.